Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning, I believe it is. Hectic week. Anyway, welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. And I'm sharing with you a little more in-depth response to the 23 rapid-fire arguments that Dr. David Hester made during our formal public debate here in Ardmore, Oklahoma, July 14th through the 16th, 2016. Dr. Hester simply got up and read off 23 arguments. Not one time did he go to the text and carefully analyze the text. Not one time did he do even a Greek study of the text. And what was extremely revealing was the contrast in style between Dr. Hester's affirmative and my affirmative. In my very first affirmative, I got up and I gave a very careful exegetical development of Romans 11:25 to 27. I demonstrated that Paul was drawing on Isaiah 27, Isaiah 59, Daniel 9, and Daniel 12. And I demonstrated that textually and exegetically. And I had asked David, are your eschatological hopes based upon and taken from God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel? I mean, after all, here is Paul expecting the salvation of Israel at the coming of the Lord in fulfillment of Isaiah 27, Isaiah 59, Daniel 9, Daniel 12. Okay? Dr. Hester had said no. His eschatology was not based upon God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel. Well, folks, listen to me very carefully, okay? And I want to be as kind as possible here. But when David Hester said his eschatological hope was not based upon God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel, and Paul said he preached nothing but God's Old Covenant promises made to Old Covenant Israel, then that proves prima facie. That proves logically. It demands that Dr. David Hester is preaching a different gospel from what Paul the Apostle taught. There's no escape from that. I made that argument in my very first affirmative. Dr. David Hester did not respond to it. He did not say one single word in response. Now, in his argument number 6, Dr. Hester appealed to, now I want you to notice, he did not do one single bit of exegetical work. He simply pointed out that Paul in 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 2 and following, urged Timothy, preach the word, be instant in season, out of season, reprove, rebuke, and exhort, because the time is coming in which men will not listen to sound doctrine. And Dr. Hester said, this is the prediction of an apostasy. And he said this was written only a very few years before the fall of Jerusalem. And that means, if Preston is right, that there were only 2 years left for that apostasy to take place. It would have been impossible for that apostasy to take place in 2 years. Well, ladies and gentlemen, once again, being as kind as possible here, with all due respect to Dr. Hester, this shows an extremely shallow understanding and a completely anachronistic understanding of Scripture. It ignores what Jesus had to say. Now, here's what it does first of all. It assumes, without any proof whatsoever, that Paul is talking about a, quote, new apostasy from what Jesus predicted. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean very simply the following. In Matthew chapter 24, in a text that Dr. Hester agrees referred to the days leading up to the fall of Jerusalem, Jesus said many false prophets will come and draw away many. Jesus said, because of persecution, many will fall away. Jesus said, because lawlessness will abound, and here is anomia, the Greek word anomia, which is the same Greek word that Paul used in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 to predict events prior to the coming of the Lord. Okay, here is Paul predicting events prior to the coming of the Lord. One of those events, the apostasia, the man of sin, the man of lawlessness, who was already alive. So what do we find? Here is Paul in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, written several years before 2 Timothy chapter 4, and Paul's predicting the apostasy, just like Jesus had predicted the apostasy. So we're supposed to believe Dr. David Hester's argument that in 2 Timothy chapter 4, Paul is predicting yet another brand new apostasy, different from what was already beginning to take place in 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. And by the way, Dr. David Hester completely ignores the testimony of Galatians chapter 1, where Paul said, I marvel, writing to the Galatian churches, that you are so soon removed from him who called you into grace unto another gospel, which is not another. But there are some who would pervert the gospel of Christ. Is this apostasy? So you see, ladies and gentlemen, when David Hester appealed to 2 Timothy chapter 4 and said Paul predicted an apostasy, and that means that there was only 2 years for that to take place, he is completely and totally ignoring the fact that Jesus predicted an apostasy of humongous proportions, in fact so large that he pondered Luke chapter 18, verse 8, when the Son of Man comes, will he even find faith on the earth? And he's talking about events that he said were going to happen soon. So once again, David Hester did absolutely zero exegesis on 2 Timothy chapter 4, no linguistic analysis, no textual analysis, no historical analysis. He completely ignored Jesus' prediction of the great apostasy. He completely ignored the scope of the apostasy that Jesus predicted. He completely ignored the historical reality of the apostasy that was taking place already in AD 49, years prior, almost 2 decades prior to 2 Timothy chapter 4. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Hester's arguments were incredibly shallow. They were anachronistic. They were not exegetical. They were eisegetic. They read into the text something that is not there. They were hermeneutically unsound. And hey, he made 23 of this kind of argument. And we'll have more responses on the flip side. So we'll see you there.